Hello there, my friend. If you're watching this video, it might be because you're facing a tough decision, or maybe just looking for a little guidance in this chapter of life. Whether you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, know someone who is, or simply want to understand this experience better, you're in the right place. Today, I want to share with you a personal story about why I regret moving into a nursing home, and the 6 hard truths I wish I'd known beforehand. But don't worry, this isn't a doom and gloom kind of story. It's about the lessons I've learned, the wisdom I've gained, and the little things that can make all the difference in your decision-making process. So grab a cozy blanket and let's talk this through together. When I first moved into the nursing home, one of the hardest things to adjust to was the loss of my independence. I had spent years living in my own home, making decisions about my day and routine. I could wake up when I felt like it, enjoy a leisurely breakfast, or decide to go for a walk when the mood struck. It was my life, my choices. But in a nursing home, everything changes. The daily schedule isn't yours to control anymore. Meal times, activities, medication schedules, everything is set for you. I remember feeling like I had lost that sense of freedom. One of the most noticeable moments was when I wanted to start my day early, but breakfast didn't arrive until 8 o'clock a.m. sharp. I had always been an early riser, enjoying the quiet of the morning with a cup of coffee and some time to myself. But now I had to wait until the staff was ready to serve me. It wasn't just the food. It was the fact that I had no control over when it came. That small change made me realize just how much I had taken my independence for granted. It's not just about waking up or eating when you want to. It's about the bigger picture, the daily decisions that shape how you live your life. Even simple things like choosing your clothes, the pace of your day, and the order in which you do things are no longer yours to decide. You might have to wait for someone to help you with personal care, or you may find yourself depending on others for transportation, even for things like going to the store or attending doctor's appointments. These daily tasks, which were once second nature, now require careful planning and help from others. At first, I tried to convince myself that this was just part of getting older, that it was natural to need assistance. But over time, I began to miss the small freedoms I had before. There's something deeply fulfilling about the ability to make choices for yourself, to have control over the rhythm of your day, and to know that everything in your life is the result of your own decisions. It's easy to overlook how important that sense of control is until it's taken away. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that needing help or structure is inherently bad. Many people feel more secure with routines and assistance, and for some, it's a relief not to have to worry about daily tasks. But for me, the loss of independence was one of the hardest parts of living in a nursing home. It felt like a fundamental change in how I lived my life. The sense of being able to choose and move freely, which I had spent my whole life cultivating, was no longer mine. This loss of control can affect your mental and emotional well-being in ways you might not anticipate. It's easy to feel small or less important when the basic decisions of your day are made for you. Over time, that feeling can accumulate and take a toll on your spirit. That's why I believe it's important to acknowledge this shift before making such a big decision, so you can prepare mentally for the changes it brings and find ways to retain as much of your personal agency as possible. One of the most unexpected and difficult aspects of moving into a nursing home was the feeling of social isolation. When you think about living with other people, you might imagine constant conversations, shared meals, or group activities. But the reality, at least for me, was far different. While there were plenty of people around, there wasn't the kind of meaningful interaction that many of us need to feel connected. It's easy to assume that just being surrounded by other residents means you'll have a built-in social network. However, many of the people living in nursing homes have their own health challenges, including memory loss, limited mobility, or difficulty communicating. This can make it hard to form the kinds of deep, engaging conversations or friendships you might expect. I remember feeling like I was in a room full of people, but somehow still feeling incredibly alone. In the beginning, I thought maybe I just hadn't found the right people to connect with. But as time went on, I realized that it wasn't about finding someone to talk to. It was about the kind of connection I was missing. Many of the residents simply weren't able to engage in the same way I had been used to. While some residents could still talk and share stories, others were often too frail or unwell to carry on a conversation. Even though I was surrounded by people all the time, I still found myself longing for the kind of meaningful interaction I had when I lived independently. I missed the casual chats with neighbors, the visits from family and friends, and even the simple moments of socializing with people I had known for years. At the nursing home, there were scheduled activities, but they weren't always the kind of things I felt drawn to. Sometimes the activities didn't fit my interests, or I was too tired to participate. It made me realize how important it is to be surrounded by people who share your values and interests, people who understand your sense of humor, or even the way you like to spend your free time. It wasn't just the lack of meaningful interaction that created the isolation. It was the sense that my world had shrunk. I no longer had the freedom to decide when and where I could socialize. Visits from family were scheduled, and though I appreciated their time, it was difficult to rely on them as my primary source of connection. And let's not forget about the staff. While they are caring and professional, their job isn't to be your friend. They're busy, constantly attending to residents' needs, and understandably, their time is limited. They offer kindness and support, but they can't replace the kind of close relationships that we all need to feel fulfilled. After a while, I began to realize how important it is to nurture social connections, no matter where you are. It's easy to assume that a nursing home will automatically provide these opportunities, but you have to be proactive in seeking out those moments of connection. Whether it's making an effort to talk to other residents, finding a group with shared interests, or reaching out to family and friends, it's essential to take steps to combat that sense of isolation. The loneliness you feel in a nursing home can be deep and unexpected, but it's something that can be managed with awareness and effort. It's important to acknowledge it and find ways to stay socially connected, because even when you're surrounded by people, you can still feel isolated if the right connections aren't there. When I moved into the nursing home, one of the biggest challenges I faced was adjusting to a new routine. Before, I had the freedom to organize my day however I wanted. Maybe I'd have a slow morning, enjoy a long breakfast, or take a walk in the afternoon. I could decide what time I went to bed, when I wanted to eat, and how I spent my hours. But in a nursing home, all of that changes. Suddenly, you're on someone else's clock, and it can be more difficult than you might think to get used to it. The most obvious change was meal times. In my previous life, I could choose when I wanted to eat, and could even skip a meal if I wasn't hungry. But in a nursing home, meals are served at set times. Breakfast was at 8 o'clock a.m. sharp, lunch was at noon, and dinner was promptly at 5 o'clock p.m. At first, this seemed like a minor adjustment. I thought, I'll just get used to it. But over time, it became a bigger issue than I anticipated. There were days when I wasn't hungry at the prescribed meal times, or when I just wasn't in the mood for what was being served. The idea of not being able to decide what I ate or when I ate felt confining. It wasn't just meals. Every part of the day had a set schedule. There were scheduled activities, like bingo or group exercises, but not all of them were activities I enjoyed. Some days I wanted to do something more relaxing, like reading or sitting in a quiet corner, but that wasn't always possible because the routine was structured around group activities. Even personal care, such as showers or dressing, had a set time and a set order that I had to adapt to. This constant, externally imposed structure began to feel overwhelming, and I realized how much I valued the flexibility I had before. Another aspect of the routine that was hard to adjust to was the sleep schedule. In my own home, I could stay up late watching a movie or chatting with a friend, but in the nursing home, bedtime was often earlier than I was used to. If I wasn't tired, it was hard to just go to bed because everyone else seemed to be following the same routine. It felt strange not to have the option to stay up a little later or go to bed when I felt ready. There's also the issue of waiting for help. While I had become accustomed to doing things on my own, I quickly realized that at the nursing home, help is needed for many daily tasks. Whether it's getting assistance with dressing, using the bathroom, or even just moving from one place to another, I had to rely on staff. Waiting for help to arrive can sometimes feel frustrating, especially when you're used to doing things for yourself. It took time, but I eventually learned to adjust. I began to accept that while the routine was rigid, I could still find small ways to personalize it. Maybe I couldn't control meal times, but I could bring my favorite snacks to my room or adjust the way I spent my free time. It wasn't perfect, but with patience and effort, I found a way to navigate the new structure. If you're considering a nursing home or already in one, be prepared for this shift in routine. It can be challenging, but it's something you can adapt to over time. You may never get back the full freedom you had before, but with a little flexibility and creativity, you can find new ways to make each day your own. When I made the decision to move into a nursing home, I didn't fully understand the financial burden it would place on me and my family. It's something that doesn't always get talked about openly, but it's a reality that can't be ignored. The cost of living in a nursing home can add up quickly, and it's not always easy to navigate. Many people think that insurance or government assistance will cover the costs, but the truth is, it doesn't always work that way. Even if you have long-term care insurance or qualify for certain government programs, there's often still a gap between what's covered and what you actually need to pay. Nursing homes can be expensive, and depending on the level of care you need, the cost can range from a few $1,000s to well over $10,000 a month. That's a significant amount of money, and it's something that many families aren't prepared for. I remember the first time I saw the bill. I had assumed that the payments would be manageable, especially considering my health insurance and the fact that I had some savings set aside. But when I saw the actual cost, I was taken aback. It wasn't just the monthly fee. There were also additional costs for special services, like physical therapy or extra assistance with personal care. Even simple things like laundry services, which I never thought twice about before, added up over time. This financial strain can be stressful, especially when you realize that you may have to dip into your savings or sell your home to cover the costs. I'd spoken to others in similar situations, and many have faced tough decisions about how to pay for nursing home care. Some families end up using up the financial resources they've spent their whole lives building up, which can create a sense of uncertainty about the future. And then there's the emotional side of the financial burden. It can be difficult to talk to your family about money, especially when it feels like you're burdening them. I know that my children wanted to help, but they also had their own responsibilities and financial pressures. There's an emotional weight that comes with knowing that your loved ones might have to make sacrifices to ensure you get the care you need. I've learned over time that it's important to have open, honest conversations about money before making the decision to move into a nursing home. If you're in a position to plan ahead, it can make a huge difference in reducing stress down the line. Talk to a financial advisor or someone who specializes in elder care planning. Explore all your options, including insurance, government programs, and other forms of assistance. Having a clear understanding of what you can afford and what you'll need to save for will help you make a more informed decision. It's also crucial to remember that the financial burden doesn't just affect you, it affects your entire family. Open communication and planning are key to making sure that everyone is on the same page and that there are no surprises later on. While the cost of nursing home care can be daunting, there are ways to manage it with the right information and support. One of the more difficult adjustments I had to make when moving into the nursing home was the loss of privacy. Before, I had complete control over my space. My home was my sanctuary, a place where I could retreat, organize things the way I wanted, and simply enjoy the quiet when I needed it. But in a nursing home, personal privacy becomes a rare commodity. From the moment I arrived, it became clear that my room was no longer entirely my own. While I had a private space where I could sleep, the boundaries of privacy were constantly being tested. The staff came in regularly to check on me, assist with daily tasks, and monitor my health. While I understood that these visits were necessary and done with care, it was still a shift from the independence I had grown accustomed to. I could no longer just walk around in my pajamas or take a quiet moment to myself without someone knocking on my door or coming in for a checkup. And then there were the shared spaces. Dining rooms, activity areas, and even hallways were filled with other residents and staff. While being around people isn't necessarily a bad thing, it often meant that moments I had once considered private, like answering a personal phone call or reading a letter from a loved one, were now part of a shared environment. It wasn't uncommon for others to overhear conversations or notice things that felt like they should remain private. The lack of personal space in common areas, and even in my own room, made it difficult to find a place to relax and unwind fully. Another aspect of privacy loss that I hadn't anticipated was how it affected my sense of dignity. Simple tasks like getting dressed or taking a shower required assistance, which, though professionally done, can still feel like an invasion of personal space. You might be used to doing these things alone at your own pace and in your own time, but in a nursing home, these moments are often handled by someone else. The staff are wonderful, but there's still a sense of vulnerability that comes with needing help with such intimate tasks. For someone who has lived a life of independence, it can feel like a loss of control over one's own body. There's also the emotional side of privacy loss. As much as I appreciated the staff and the care they provided, I found myself missing the quiet moments I used to have, those times when I could just be alone with my thoughts without interruptions. I realized how important solitude had been for my mental health. It wasn't just about being alone. It was about having the space to think, reflect, and be at peace without constant interaction. The absence of privacy can be especially difficult for people who value their independence. If you're someone who has always been used to managing your own space and having time alone, it can be a challenge to accept the fact that those small freedoms are no longer part of your daily routine. However, over time, I learned to adapt. I found ways to carve out moments of solitude, like retreating to a quiet corner or taking short walks outside. It wasn't the same as having full privacy, but it helped me maintain a sense of personal space. If you're considering a nursing home, it's important to think about how this loss of privacy might affect you. It's something that can be challenging to prepare for, but understanding the reality of shared spaces and constant assistance can help you adjust and find ways to maintain your sense of self. Moving into a nursing home isn't just a physical transition, it's an emotional one too. It's not always something people talk about openly, but the emotional impact of leaving your home and living in a care facility can be profound. While there are certainly moments of comfort, security, and care, there's also a deeper emotional toll that can be difficult to bear. At first, I didn't realize just how much of an emotional challenge it would be. I had been so focused on the practical aspects, the logistics of moving, getting my things settled, and adjusting to the routine, that I didn't fully prepare myself for how emotionally difficult it would feel. I thought, I'm getting the care I need, this is a good decision. But soon enough, I began to feel an overwhelming sense of sadness and loss. It wasn't just about leaving my home. It was about leaving behind everything I knew. The familiar sights, sounds, and smells of my own space were gone. My garden, the neighborhood stores, even the small moments that made my old life feel like mine. Everything was replaced by a new routine, new faces, and a new environment. One of the hardest parts was the feeling of isolation that comes with being in a nursing home. Even though you're surrounded by people, you often feel disconnected from the world you once knew. The daily interactions, though kind and necessary, were not the same as the connections I had outside the facility. I missed my family's visits, but even more, I missed the simple freedom of being able to see them whenever I wanted. I also missed the spontaneity of seeing friends or neighbors and chatting over coffee or meeting up for lunch. In a nursing home, those simple social moments are harder to come by, and this can lead to feelings of loneliness. Over time, it can begin to wear on your spirit. Another emotional challenge was the sense of loss of control. I had spent my life managing my own affairs, deciding where to go, what to do, and how to live. But now, I was part of a structured system where choices were limited. That loss of control, combined with the reality of needing help for things I used to do independently, can create feelings of helplessness and frustration. It's not always easy to admit, but it can be emotionally exhausting to constantly rely on others, even if they are doing their best to care for you. And then there are the changes in your sense of identity. When you move into a nursing home, it can feel like you're no longer you in the same way. The role you once had in your family or community changes. You may not be able to contribute to the way you once did. You might not be able to volunteer at your local church, visit friends, or engage in the hobbies that used to define you. It can feel like you've been reduced to a patient or a resident, and the emotional weight of that can be heavy. All of these emotions, loss, isolation, frustration, sadness, are completely natural, but they can still take a toll on your mental health. I've learned that it's okay to feel these things, but it's also important to address them. Acknowledging the emotional side of this transition helps to take away some of its power. Talk to others who understand what you're going through. Try to keep connections with family and friends, even if it's just through phone calls or video chats. And remember, it's okay to seek professional help if you're feeling overwhelmed. Adjusting to life in a nursing home is hard emotionally, but with time, understanding, and support, you can find ways to cope and even thrive in this new chapter of life. Don't be afraid to embrace your feelings and seek out ways to stay connected to the life and identity you value. One of the biggest surprises for me after moving into the nursing home was how much it affected my physical health. I went in expecting the main focus to be on my care and well-being. And while the staff was wonderful in providing medical attention, I soon realized that living in a nursing home brings its own set of physical challenges. At first, I assumed that I would receive all the care I needed, and that being in a facility would actually improve my health. The reality, though, is a bit more complicated. While there is definitely medical support, the day-to-day routine in a nursing home often leads to a sedentary lifestyle. In my previous life, I was used to walking, gardening, or running errands on my own, which kept me active. But once I was in the nursing home, my physical activity became limited. Many residents spend a lot of time sitting in chairs, watching TV, or attending group activities that don't involve much movement. While there are exercise programs available, they aren't always suited to everyone's needs, and they can feel impersonal or difficult to keep up with. I noticed that the longer I stayed in the facility, the more my body started to feel stiff and sluggish. I wasn't moving as much as I used to, and the lack of exercise began to affect my energy levels. Things that I used to do without thinking, like walking around the block or stretching my legs, became much harder. It's easy to overlook how important regular physical movement is to overall health until you're no longer able to do it. I found myself feeling weaker and less able to perform everyday tasks that I used to do with ease. There's also the issue of nutrition. In the nursing home, meals are prepared for you, but they are often designed to accommodate a wide range of residents, some of whom have specific medical conditions or dietary restrictions. While the meals are nutritious, they can sometimes feel bland or less satisfying than what I was used to cooking for myself. I found myself missing the ability to choose exactly what I wanted to eat and to prepare meals that matched my tastes. Over time, this led to a decline in my overall enjoyment of food, and I noticed I wasn't eating as much as I used to. Another physical challenge I hadn't anticipated was the constant care required for personal hygiene and mobility. Even though the staff is incredibly attentive, there are times when waiting for help can be physically taxing. The more dependent I became on others, the more I noticed my body's physical limitations. Things that once felt effortless now took more time and effort. I had to learn how to ask for help and adjust to a slower pace of life. It's important to remember that the environment in a nursing home, no matter how well designed or staffed, can contribute to a decrease in physical activity, a shift in nutrition, and a need for more assistance with daily tasks. It's easy to slip into a cycle of inactivity and forget how important it is to keep moving. I've learned that being proactive about my physical health is crucial, even in a nursing home setting. Whether it's taking advantage of exercise programs, going for short walks, or simply doing stretches in my room, it's important to maintain some level of physical activity to prevent further decline. If you're considering a nursing home or already living in one, it's vital to stay mindful of your physical health. Seek out ways to stay active, eat well, and ask for help when needed. Your body depends on it, and so does your sense of independence and well-being. One of the hardest parts of living in a nursing home is feeling like you've lost touch with the outside world. It can start slowly, almost without you realizing it. You're in a place where the focus is on care and routine, and over time, your connections to the life you used to know can begin to fade. Friends stop calling as often, you miss family events, and suddenly the world outside your walls feels distant and unfamiliar. When I was living in my own home, I was part of a community. I chatted with my neighbors, went to church, ran errands at the local market, and kept up with what was happening in the neighborhood. Those little everyday interactions may seem small, but they gave my life rhythm and connection. Once I moved into the nursing home, those interactions became rare. I was no longer out in the world, I was a visitor in it, and only when someone came to see me. What surprised me most was how quickly people's lives moved on without me. I don't blame them. Everyone has their own busy schedules, their own responsibilities. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, it became harder to keep up with what was happening beyond the nursing home walls. I'd hear about things after the fact: birthdays, weddings, neighborhood events. Even conversations that used to be regular became less frequent. Some friends didn't know how to talk to me anymore, or they assumed I was too busy or tired to connect. There's also the challenge of technology. While some residents are comfortable with smartphones or video calls, many of us didn't grow up with these tools. Learning how to use them can feel overwhelming, and that can create another barrier to staying connected. Even when we do learn, it's not quite the same as sitting across from someone, sharing a cup of coffee or a laugh. Screens can help bridge the gap, but they don't always fill the emotional space left by physical presence. The longer you're in a nursing home, the more you risk becoming invisible to the outside world. Not because people don't care, but because you're no longer part of their everyday routine. This feeling of being forgotten can lead to loneliness and even depression. It's hard to stay positive when you feel like your life has become smaller, more confined, and less involved in the world you used to know. But it's not all hopeless. I've learned that it takes effort, both from you and from your loved ones, to stay connected. I started writing letters again, something I hadn't done in years. I asked my family to schedule regular video calls. I even reached out to a local community center that offered volunteer programs to connect with residents like me. Small steps like these helped me feel a little more included, a little more visible. If you or someone you love is considering a nursing home, keep this in mind. Staying connected takes intention. Encourage family and friends to keep reaching out. Make time for conversations, visits, and shared experiences, even if they're simple. Being part of the world doesn't stop just because your address changes. With a little creativity and persistence, you can hold on to the connections that matter most.